Okay, so in Angular we have two types of forms. One is template driven, and other one is React forms. Okay, both are different. Basically, React forms is not part of Angular. This is borrowed concept from reactive programming. That means the React JS. We have React JS as well, right? Just like Angular. So in that we have this reactive programming concepts. Okay, this React forms is one such concepts from reactive programming. Whereas this Angular forms is part of Angular framework, and we have this forms module, right? So forms module where we have all the forms related uh, uh, directives and forms related util classes and forms related data collection, like data binding stuff, right? So most of that is basically part of this forms module. And the React forms basically offers an easy way of doing or handling forms. Okay, if you have very big form and you want to basically add validations, or when user submits the form, you want to get a JSON object out of that form. So all those kind of things can be done with React forms. But whereas it is little difficult with this the template driven forms. Okay, so so we have two types of form. One is template driven approach and reactive approach. Okay. Now we are going to look into the template driven approach. Okay. So template driven approach, template driven forms are basically part of the forms module. We have to import forms module. Whereas reactive forms basically are part of reactive forms module. Okay. We have to import this one to use reactive forms. Okay. So as I said, we have to import the forms module into the import section of your ng module. Okay. I just used app module here because till now we didn't cover the feature modules. So far we are using only app module, right? So the this app module we are importing the forms module. Okay. So now your your app module or your components, whatever you create part of this module, can use all the forms related features. Okay, like data binding and adding validations and handling form submissions, all those features. Okay, now how can we basically um, set up a form? Okay, now this is basic form, right? So you have form element, and this is a course name label, and this is the input box for your course name, and this is course description, and this is the course description input box. And finally we have uh, a reset button. We can also have basically a submit button, so we can have a submit and reset buttons. Now this is a sample form. Okay, so now let's go to the next topic. So here what we're doing is we are basically telling Angular that this is a bounded input box. That means we are using this ng model directive to make this field bindable. Okay, so here and here we are using ng model, and this will be bounded. But in case if you want to basically add any default value to the form, right? So sometimes when you go to a form, there will have gender field. It will have male and female, right? So sometimes default value will be selected, like male will be selected. Sometimes female value will be selected, or sometimes you might have a drop down value and you want to have a default value in it. Okay, in those cases also we can basically tell Angular, uh, I mean assign some string, right? String or any value you want to assign, so that will be assigned to your model. Okay, assume that this input is a kind of a field inside your TypeScript class. Okay, you can have a field there in your TypeScript class, and you can bind that field to this input box. Okay, just like this one, course name we have. Course name is a field, and you can bind this field or this text box to your component variable called course name. Okay, so that is bounded then. So whatever value you enter in this text box will immediately change your course name field in the component. Okay, that is what binding. And we have like two bindings, right? So one is one-way binding, and the other one is two-way binding. Okay, so the difference between one-way binding and two-way binding is, I think we already covered this concept in the data binding. So the difference is, if it is from code to template, that is one-way binding. That means in your code you have this field course name, and you have assigned a value here, and in your template, okay, this is a template. In your template, and you created this ng model, and I mean you added this ng model directive, and then you added this course name. Okay, exactly this name. Okay, field name. So now these two are binded. Okay, this is your TypeScript code, and this is your template. These two are binded. So if you change this value here in the TypeScript class, that value in the input box will be changed. Or if you type something in this input box, then this value in TypeScript class will be changed. Okay, vice versa. But that is like two-way binding. If both are updating, that is two-way binding. But one-way binding is code to template or template to code. Okay, vice versa. So that is basically um, either case we can call one-way data binding, because it is going to from code to template. Okay, or it might come from template to code. Okay, these two are basically comes under one-way binding, and two-way binding is little different. Okay, the difference between this one-way binding and this two-way binding is only this syntax. Okay, here I used only square brackets. Okay, and I send the course name from the component. But here I use the same course name field, but I change the syntax here. Okay, instead of using square brackets, I'm using parentheses also inside that. That means this course field is two-way binded. Okay, so if you change something in this text field, it will go to the uh, variable, or if you change variable value inside the TypeScript class, in the text box value will be changed. Okay, so we saw code to template and two-way data binding, right? So there is another way called template to code. If you do something in the template, then that will be changed in the code. Okay, how can we do that? So in the template, for the input box, you can basically have an input event. Okay, something like this, just to showcase how this works. Okay, so this is an input event, and for each key you enter, you're going to call this method from the TypeScript class. And what I am passing the event. Okay, so every time you enter a key, okay, if you just type hello, hello is 5 characters, right? So 5 times this change method will be called, because for each input event it will call this method. Now once this method is called, what we are doing is just resetting the value or overriding the course name field with event, this event. Okay, so here we are using event. So this event dot target dot value. Okay, so that value, the field value, will come into the course name. Okay, every time you enter a key, we get the whole string, and whole string we are setting to course name. Okay, this is basically template to code, but this is automatic code to template. So code we have this directive, and we just assign this field name here, and data flow from code to template. But here we are doing it reverse. We are typing something in the text field, and then based on the input event, the change method will be called. In the change method, we are setting course name manually. Okay, so this is from template to code, and this is two-way binding. Instead of doing this one together, the simple and easiest way is having the syntax. Okay, so now this will work both ways. So now how can we submit a form? Okay, so we have this ng submit event handler. So whenever you submit a form, okay, so your this is form here, and we have field 1, field 2, 2 fields, and then we have submit button, and we have a reset button, okay, or clear button. So whenever a type is submit, and if you are clicking on that button, then this ng submit event will be triggered. Okay, and when this event is triggered, we are calling on submit method from the Typescript class. Okay, so like this. So this on submit, you can have any name here. I just wrote on submit, but you can write save or something like that. Okay, and what we are sending the form. Okay, this is a template reference. We'll cover this syntax in the templates. Okay, this is like giving a reference to this form. Okay, giving a reference. So what is the form name I want to give? I want to give um, the C form. So C form basically holding ng form. Ng form is this form basically. Okay, now I am basically passing this reference to the on submit method. Okay, now let's go and see what is happening here. Once you submit, you get a form variable that is of type ng form. Okay, the form variable is C form. So C form we are passing to ng submit. So ng submit now will receive this variable of type ng form. Okay, so of type ng form, and here how we can access those field data. So form dot value dot course name. Course name is first field. This one. Okay, this name, and form dot value dot course description. Okay, and this is our course description. We have to look at the name field, not the ID field. Okay, always look at the name field, and whatever name you assign, right, that name is basically a variable. So now what it will print? It will print course name is whatever value entered in the text box, and course description is whatever description you entered in that description box. Okay, and we also have a clear or like the reset functionality also. In the reset functionality, what we are doing, we're taking the click event, okay, on click event, and we're calling a method called on clear. So in on clear, what we're doing, we're basically taking a course form and we are calling a reset one. So how we are calling course form? Course form is basically a C form, right? So C form is basically a reference given to the form. So it's like giving a variable a name. Okay. So now this entire form till here will have this reference. Okay. So now I'm doing a view child. View child means in the template of this component, look for this variable, this reference variable. Okay. So it is here. So it will find this and it will keep that reference here. Okay, that is of type ng form, right? So that's the reason type is ng form. So now ng form has a function called reset. Okay, so now I can take this dot course form dot reset, then the entire form will be reset. Okay, so any doubts here? This is a little confusing because this is new syntax here. Okay, so how can you add form validations? Okay, so even for form validations also, we have to use the reference variable, the CNAME. Okay, so this will be little tricky. Now we have this input element, and we bound it with the two-way binding syntax. Okay, now this is bounded, and I assign some reference name. Okay, of type ng model. Okay, the C name is course name of type ng model. Now I can access this C name variable across my template. Okay, that template. Now what I'm doing, I'm accessing this template C name dot errors. If there are any errors, okay, because if you see, I added required as a validation. So this is a required field. Okay, when you open some form, right, some fields are required. So they put a star symbol there. That means that's a mandatory field. So the same way, this course name is a required field here. So that's the reason I have a required attribute. Now I'm accessing the CNAME variable dot if there are any errors. Okay, in case user submitted the form without entering data, but that is a required field, right? So it will have the errors. It will have one error because the form is submitted without entering value into this course name field. Now we are checking these two flags. One is dirty and one is touched. Okay, the meaning of this one is first time whenever you open the form for the first time, basically there won't be any errors. Okay, and it is basically not dirty. Dirty means you entered some value and removed it. That time it will become dirty. Okay, and you touch means you clicked on that input box and just clicked on again somewhere else. So that means touched. Dirty means you entered some value and then you cleared it, you removed it. Okay, so that time it will be dirty. So what we're doing, there are some errors and it is either touched or dirty. In these two cases, if these two conditions are true, then we are going to show this message. Okay, course name is required. Okay, so there are errors, many types of errors because we added required here. So we are checking if cname dot errors of required is there, then show this error. Okay, if let's say email validation is there, we can look for cname dot errors of email. Then what will show the error? Email format is not correct, something like that, some message. Okay, so let's try to execute this sample and see how this works. It will go to app component and it will remove the yesterday's stuff. So we don't have on submit, but let's have the on submit. Okay, let's go and see. Nothing is happening. It is just showing course name and course description. Okay, let me press F12 and if I do something, nothing will happen because we are not doing anything. Even submit method also, we did not provide any implementation in the submit method. So let's write something console.log. Hello. Okay, now if I click on this button, the hello is getting printed. Okay. So how it will know when to call this method? Because we are having a button of type submit, and then we are clicking on that button. That means we are submitting it. So when we submit that, it will basically call this method because of the ng submit event. Okay, ng submit event handler. Now how to bind it bind this field two-way binding. Okay, so this is already a model, and now what we can do is equals let's create some variable in the TypeScript class. Course name course name course description. This is course description. This is course name. Okay, still nothing is happening. Only hello is getting printed. Why? Because we just assigned the field name, but we are not printing this field anywhere. Okay, let's print this one. Let's print this one here. Okay, still nothing is happening. Well, let's put the two-way binding. Okay, so this case, this is one-way binding, right? So basically, yeah, basically this field is getting updated, but it's not getting displayed here. Okay, so because it's a one-way binding, but when I change it to two-way binding syntax, when I start typing, it is showing this data here, right? And if I remove also, it is syncing with the UI. So for this one, it is printing here. If I remove, it will remove. Okay. So this is completely bounded. Okay. In case in this way you want to have a default value inside your course name and inside your description, because if I refresh this, these values will go away. These are showing empty. So in that case, I can go back to the app component and then I can assign some value here. Test one here, test two there. So by default, test one is coming here, and also test one is coming in the interpolation case also, interpolation syntax also. So in course description, we are getting test two. So these are default values. Okay, because these two are tightly bound. Whatever value assigned in the component is coming here and here, and when you change this one, immediately this value is changed. This value is meaning the value inside that field. Okay, when I start changing this, that respective value will be changed in the component field also. Okay, so yeah, I think we covered this one, one-way binding and two-way binding. But again, if you want to see the one-way binding and two-way binding, I can still show. So the code to template, code to template values are, but let's see template to code. Okay. So in template, you want to give some input, and we should update that field in the class. Okay. In that case, what we have to do, we have to do we have to remove this, and we have to have the input event, and in input, let me call change val some method. Okay, I'm going to write that method. I'm going to send event. this dot course name equals let me receive it as an event of type any. I can say event dot target dot value. Let me go here. Course name is basically test1. The test1 is coming here because we remove that ng model. It is not coming here because this is not bound. Okay, this is template, and whenever I type something here, it will go into the component field. Okay, so if you see here, this value is getting updated. Okay, for each character entry, it will call this method, and in this method, we are replacing the course name with the whatever value we entered in that field. Okay, that is basically one-way binding from template to your TypeScript class. Okay, whereas if you are interpolating a string, that is also a one-way binding between your TypeScript class to your HTML. Okay, that is reverse. Okay, these two are called one-way binding, whereas this syntax is called two-way binding. Okay, in this case, you don't have to do all this. Both will be in sync. Okay, template to code, code to template. So now how can we submit a form? Okay. We already have this ng on submit, but only thing is we have to have this syntax. Okay, we have to have a reference. Okay, it can be anything. You don't have to give C form. It can be course form. Okay, now I have to send this course form. So only while defining, you have to use the hash before the template variable. But once it is defined like this, anywhere else if you are using, you can just use that name itself. You don't have to use the hash. Okay. Let me go to the on submit, and let me add field property of type ng form. Okay. Now let's print the C form. What it will print. Let me enter something here, and submit. Okay, it is printing ng form here in the console. It is having the entire reference to that form we have. Okay, so it will have a lot of stuff here, but what we have to look is we have to look at this one, controls, form dot controls. So controls, what controls we have? We have only course description because the course description is bound. We removed the ng model from here. That's the reason that is not coming. Course name is not coming. So in order to make this work, we have to change this. We have to change course name. Okay, now if we submit, our controls, form controls will have two fields. Okay, so course name is one field, course description is one field, course name is another field. Okay, here you can see course name and second value is course description. Okay, and if we expand the course description or course name, and what is the value we have? Test and some junk here, some value. Okay, if we expand course description, what is the value we have? We have test and some description. Okay, so how we can basically access that specific values? So we have to either go through form dot controls dot course description dot value, or we have the value directly here. That means form dot value. So if I print form dot value in console dot value, okay, that field is coming. If I print this one, it will print only that object or form object. course description, course name, and what is the value? Whatever value we entered here. Okay, respective values. So this way you can submit this form to the backend. That means some API or something. Okay, that is the form submit example. In order to get the reference of the form inside the component, what we can do is we can do view child. View child meaning look into the template and find this child. So child having this name. Okay, we go to the template, we can find course form as a variable name, and we can come here and we can put this here. Course form is a variable name, and that entire form will come into this. So here also we don't have to pass that value because we already have reference of this form. Okay, so now what I can do, I can remove this from here and I can access this with this dot course form dot value. Okay, so there is no difference. In on submit you can remove this. Okay, so we're not passing anything from here, but we are getting a reference of this form using the view child here. Okay, only thing is we have to give the variable name here, which you defined in the template, so that reference variable or that reference DOM element will come into this variable. Okay, now I can use this operator to get that reference, and I can access the value. Okay, now go here, type something and submit. You can still see course name and course description is coming. Okay, now in order to reset, right? So how I can reset? Simple. I have to write a reset method. Reset. Instead of calling form.value, I can call reset method. Okay. Now somewhere in our code we have to call this method. So where we can call. Okay. Let me create another button, and this type is button. Okay. So on click, call reset. Okay. Here let me call this reset form. Okay, we have reset form. Let me change the color. Button default. Okay, so now I have some value, default value. If I click on this, that entire form will be reset. If I type something and I click on reset, it will just reset the form. Immediately it is resetting, right? So once it is resetting, this values also will be removed from the template, because it is one-way binding we have between the component and template. Okay, so it is simple to handle a form, right? So this is very simple example. I have only 2 fields, but let's say you have 100 fields, right? So if you have 100 fields, and once you submit that 100 fields, getting a form like this or like JSON object like this is very difficult if you don't use Angular, right? Because Angular gives us this easy way of binding these variables. It will be easy for you to get entire JSON object of the whole form. Okay, and also the reset functionality also, you can have this button. You just click on this button and the entire form, that 100 fields will be reset. Okay, that can be achieved with only single line. And also getting the entire form of value also is achieved with a single line. Okay, so the validations also, right? So how we can basically do the validation? Let me add this field here. This is a required. Okay, and let me copy this, and let me remove these two interpolations and put it here. Okay, so here I have to give some reference name. So what reference name I can give? I can give C name, that means course name. Okay, course name equals to of type ng model. So here this is entire form. That's the reason we use ng form. Okay, ng model is basically for each input element, or for each element where you collect data. It can be a radio button, it can be a checkbox, it can be input text box, or it can be a text area, right? So now we have this reference created, all these errors are gone. Okay, so now if this error if this field is not provided with any value, then this error must come. Okay, let's go and see. Okay, if I enter something, the error will not show, but if I remove it, it is saying course name is required. So how it is coming? So basically this errors array will be populated when there is an error. Okay, some validation is missing, it will add all those validation errors into this errors field, and if it is touched, then only we have to show the errors. Okay, let's see, we remove this, what will happen? Oh yes. Okay, let me go to the component. Let me remove these default values. Okay, these are little confusing. Okay, so let me refresh. So after refreshing, I didn't even touch the form. Still it is showing course name is required. Okay, so that means it is very bad user experience. Okay, when user comes to your form, then you are showing all the errors. User didn't even touch the form, but still you are showing these errors, right? So that is a bad user experience. So for that reason, we have to check whether user touched that form, or whether user entered some value and then removed it. Okay, these two checks we have to find. So how we can find those two checks? One is either is dirty or it is touched. Okay, in these two cases we can basically show this message. How can we know whether it is touched or dirty, right? Let's do the same interpolation, and let's print this, and let's convert it to JSON. That JSON means the human understandable format, and let's print this dirty, and let's print touched. Okay, let's see. Let me put this in paragraph tag. Okay, it is coming here. So it is, the error is there. Okay, first thing is you are printing errors. Okay, it is saying errors has one value, that one value is required. Okay, that this field is required, but we did not provide any value. That's the reason this value is true, and rest of the two values are false. Why false? Because I did not touch that form. Okay, the second false, that's the reason it is false. And it is not dirty. Dirty means user did not enter any value and remove it. Okay, so these two are false. Let's say if I touch it, touch means if I click it and click somewhere else, what will happen? I clicked on it and I clicked on somewhere else. The second one became true because I touched that field. Okay, I touched that field. Okay, still the dirty is false. Okay, let me enter something. Okay, immediately it became true. Let me remove it. So now the required is true, it is dirty, as well it is also touched. All the three become true. Okay, so adding this condition, basically telling don't show error when user enters the form. User goes to the form for the first time, don't show the errors. Show the errors, even if there are errors, show only when the form is dirty or the form is touched, or that element is touched, not the form. Okay, that element is either dirty or it is touched. Okay, so in those cases only show this error, otherwise don't show. Okay, so that is the reason we are using these things. So this is how basically you can add as many validations for all your fields. So any questions so far? Okay. So we'll cover modules tomorrow. I think we are already I think it's 42 minutes, right? So let's cover modules. So when we cover React forms, let's cover the modules as well. Okay.